And as always, I'm joined by a team manager for Pro Racing Ontario, Daryl Timmers.
Hello.
A.K.A. the Pod Father. All right? This guy's going viral. Big shouts out to Gary Clute. He actually, showed us some love for our podcast, yes. And I noticed that you were on his podcast last week as well. What's all that about?
He just likes to kind of chat with friends. Myself and Gary have been close friends for a while, and he was always wanting to do a podcast because he's part of Legendary Motor Car, so he has a good background in the motorsports and car industry. Mm-hmm. And he just kind of wanted to sit down and chat with some of his friends. And his first guy that he interviewed was Ron Fellows, and then his other buddy was a real estate agent, and kind of talked about the market and what's going on with that.
Yeah. What's going on with that?
Yeah, that's a non-F1 podcast thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but it was good. It was just fun to sit down and reminisce on some old times that we've had, and yeah, it was good to sit down and chat with Gary.
And with all that being said, the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix officially in the books. We're looking at a Red Bull 1-2.
Yes.
Lando squeezes in the final podium position.
That was great. It's great to see him. It was the first sprint
race of the season as well. So let's start right there. What did you think of the sprint race weekend? They made some changes this time.
Yeah, I honestly like the sprint races. It just gives the fans something else to watch on a Saturday. It helps, kind of sort out the people that have had some bad qualifying to kind of bounce back and get some time in to make some places up for the feature race. But I honestly do like the sprint races. A lot of people are not 100%, they're not 100% on them, I guess you can say. But I honestly like them. It adds a little bit of, it actually shows that they push the car for the entire sprint race. It shows what the cars can do. I'm a fan of them.
I like the fact that they're trying something.
Yeah.
My only critique would be on a weekend like this weekend where the weather was kind of intermittent. Yeah. I feel like one more practice session before the qualifying would have really lined up the weekend properly because it almost looked like cars were kind of just out there for the sprint race with just a no idea kind of setup. Which is good because it kind of mixes it up a bit. I mean, we've seen Carlos Sainz go from P10 right up to P4, and he had a great sprint.
Yeah.
Not so great feature, but we'll get into that down the line. Speaking of the features, we're looking at the first Red Bull 1-2 since 2016. Max Verstappen, dominant weekend. Yes. Sergio Perez, he was on the pace most of the time, not so much in the feature race, but Red Bull, they seem to have really gotten their hands on these regulations because that car looks like the best car on the grid.
It does. The Ferrari looks really, really good, but I think out of raw straight line speed and a little bit better average around the corner and the straightaway stuff, I think the Red Bull is definitely a better all-around car. Max is on point this weekend. He drove amazing. You can't take anything from him. He didn't let the sprint race, dropping behind Leclerc hurt him or anything. He just kind of stuck to it and got back by him with 2 laps to go, and it just shows, he's starting to mature a little bit more and kind of stay calm when things are going his way, which, I guess everyone's kind of happy when things go their way. So I think, Red Bull is the all-around car to beat right now. The Ferrari is definitely not far behind. It's on certain tracks, it's definitely going to be faster than the Red Bull. But I think right now, between the driver duo of Perez and Verstappen, it's going to be hard to beat. Sainz is kind of having some rough goes right now, but I think, once he gets over that cliff, I think the Ferraris will come back at them again.
Definitely a misfortunate weekend Ferrari in general because it's like their home race.
One
of 2 home races, and Sainz had high expectations, high hopes, I should say, going into the weekend. He just read up his contract. So he's feeling good, and then boom. Qualifying session. Bins it. It happens.
It does. It happens. You're on that limit. When you're in qualifying, you're pushing the most you will for the entire weekend. And they are on the limit trying to put their time in. And, you see it all the time where, Max hit the wall last year, Leclerc hit the wall last year in qualifying. They are on the absolute limit. In the race, they're not driving at the limit of the car. One, they have to make sure the car is reliable enough to finish off the race. And they have to do the fuel save. And they have to do all of that stuff where they have a heavy car with the fuel load. So you don't see them push like that in the races. But in a qualifying session, they're light fuel loads. It's the fastest the car can go, and they're on the limit. So you see that happen when even the best of the best make mistakes, and that's what happened to Sainz.
We saw him fly through the field in the sprint race.
Yes.
He managed to make his way up to P4, start the race P4, and if it wasn't for corner 1.
Yeah.
So there was a mix-up there. Daniel Ricciardo kind of got into Carlos Sainz and pretty much beached his Ferrari.
Just touched the curb.
What do you make of that incident? Racing incident?
It's racing. I think Ricciardo tried to give him room and it kind of drove over the curb a little bit too much, and it bounced him wide and then put him into Sainz. I think they were both giving each other enough room. It was one of those things, wet conditions, painted curbs. You eat too much of the curb and you're going to bounce off the curb. So, it was just a little error from Ricciardo. It wasn't malicious or anything like that. I think he just tried to give him more room than he needed to, and it ended up hurting him in the end and pushed him into Sainz. Mm-hmm. I think if he kind of, drove over the curb like he normally do instead of putting half the car over the curb, he would have been okay. But I also think, it is racing at that point, and I don't think Sainz was mad. It was one of those things. Yeah, he's disappointed with the weekend and how it went, but he can't be mad about that. It's one of those racing incidents, and I'm sure if he goes and looks at the footage today, he'll be like, yeah, you know what, he didn't mean to do that. He just bounced off the curb and hit me. I just think it is what it is at that point. They're racing on the limits. They're in the rain. It's tricky conditions, and I think it's just a small error from Ricciardo trying to, they're showing some good pace right now, so I think he was just trying to capitalize on a good start, and it backfired on him.
And that was the most unfortunate thing about the whole scenario, because we were looking at two guys who had decent pace. I mean, especially for Ricciardo, like the McLaren, we'll get into them in a bit, but they seem to have really turned it around really, really quickly to competing for that P3 in the constructor. But we've seen some pace from Daniel Ricciardo. He ended up continuing, but he was all the way back at the end of the field. I mean, Carlos, he beached it. Definitely not the way his weekend wanted to go. But on the other side of the garage is Charles Leclerc. He's had pace. He's been on the ball for every race leading into this one. He maybe just have been a bit off at the pace this weekend, but they tried something near the end, and it ended up biting him.
Yeah.
So like, why? Why did they pit him?
I think it was, let's try to take a point away from Max. He's far enough ahead that, and there was a big enough gap that, he shouldn't have lost too many spots. He did lose one spot to Lando, but he blew by him like he was standing still. So I think, with the super soft tire, the soft tire, they were just looking to get the fast lap. I don't think it was a bad call. I think the team was looking at it as, okay, let's do some damage control here. We're going to end up third as long as everything works out in the end. So let's try something here. They forced, Red Bull into pitting at that point. So, you're also forcing the team into doing something they don't really want to do, because they have a big enough lead that they could have just cruised around at the front and won the race. Mm-hmm. But you're forcing them into the pits where there could be an error. There could be, like we've seen it with Mercedes, with Bottas that one time. And
we've seen several.
Yeah, several. Yeah. Exactly, right? So you're forcing a team into a situation where they have to go into pit, and maybe something will go wrong. And there you go. You get to capitalize on it. But also you're risking yourself as well, because you're going into the pits and same thing could happen to you. So I think at that point they're like, let's try something. Well, if we just continue on the way we're doing this, if nothing's going to change, we're going to end up third. We pit, we're going to end up third.
But he's got such a margin on the championship, like. Yeah. I'm just like, because the reality of it is now they walk away with not nothing, but almost as next to nothing as possible. Like, there's that car, easy P3. Yeah. And he had a moment with Checo there, but he started pushing to try and finish P2, and every racing driver is going to do that. Yeah. It's part of his maturation, but the championship is a long marathon. Yes, it is. And I think, probably the best thing is he'll walk away from this and be like, "Okay, guys, we're not doing Plan D again."
Yeah, exactly. There's no Plan D anymore.
Plan A, B, C, no D. No D. That's it. But it was one of those things. We want to see guys race, and let's be honest, it was a bit of a snooze fest until he spun around. Yeah. But it's just one of those things. I always like the insider information as to why they would do it. Because, when you're just kind of sitting there and you're just lapping and you're making it to the end, there's no reliability issues. Like, P3, in my opinion, was the best they could have done because the Red Bull was just so much faster.
Yeah, I agree. But at that point, you're still looking to maximize the maximum amount of points you can get. And it would have worked out if he didn't make that mistake and drive over the curb pushing like that. So, in the end, yes, you could have said, hindsight to be in 2020.
Always.
If he didn't spin, you would have seen maybe a nice Checo and Leclerc battle, but we didn't see that. We saw Leclerc luckily just tap the wall and keep going, which very, very, very lucky on.
Super lucky, yeah.
Yeah, he was. That could have been horrible right there. Yes, he went back to, what was it, 7th, but in the end, they made a decision to try to shake things up a bit. They forced Red Bull into doing something they didn't want to, and it kind of backfired on them in the end. But hey, that's why you do things in these in motorsports, right? You got to try to do anything to capitalize on bad situations.
And capitalizing off that bad situation was Lando Norris.
Yes.
Puts that McLaren in P3. Had good pace throughout the weekend. P3 wasn't on the cards.
No.
Off a natural pace.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about it, right? When somebody takes a gamble, there's a reward, whether they, win the bet or not, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's going to be there to pick up the pieces. Lando Norris, thus far, and the McLaren car team, they've managed to turn things around.
Yep.
Where do you see the next little while, maybe till the summer break, going for them?
Honestly, they're on their uphill right now. It's a good thing to see them pick the pace back up in their car. I'm happy that they're back on pace. I would call them the number 3 team right now. I don't think Mercedes is faster than them, so
we'll get to that.
yeah. So I would call them the number 3 team, and from how they started off in Bahrain to where they are now, it was a 180-degree turn. Like, it's completely different. The team's got confidence again. The drivers have confidence again. Even Ricciardo has confidence again, and we saw him struggling for a while. So I'm very happy to see McLaren back to the pointy end of the field.
Yeah, it was. They started off so well with the testing, and Lando, he said it. He's like, I don't want to be number one right now.
This is people think we're fast.
Yeah, so it was like a meteoric high to a meteoric low.
Yeah.
And then they brought themselves up again. And if this is kind of where they're settling off, this is not too shabby.
Yeah.
Like no one was really expecting them to kind of outclass Red Bull or Ferrari or even Mercedes. I don't think a lot of people thought Ferrari was going to be the way they are this year. We were looking at, what we've been looking at, Red Bull, Mercedes, and Mercedes is nowhere to be found. The most surprising thing about Mercedes is the results that George Russell is putting on the board right now.
Yeah.
He hasn't finished lower than P5 in a feature in the Grand Prix.
No.
Let's talk about it, man, because he looks like the guy.
Yeah, he's definitely the guy that Mercedes has to concentrate on at this point. With him being so, I think 4th now in the championship and Lewis being in 7th, it's kind of one of those things where George is consistently faster than Lewis right now. Lewis is just not vibing with this car. He got stuck behind the AlphaTauri and the Williams the entire race. They had a DRS train going, and yes, it was tricky track conditions. So no one really wanted to sacrifice and jump through the outside or go for that crazy dive bomb to make it work. So he was just kind of stuck there. It was hard for them. If it was like a one-on-one thing with Gasly, he could have got by him, but because Gasly had the DRS as well, it's hard. And the fact that the Williams was fast enough to stay ahead of them.
That was the thing. Like, I was like, am I watching this correctly?
Yeah.
Wait, what? What?
Yeah, exactly.
It's man.
Crazy. It's crazy to see that the Mercedes team is struggling. And you can see it on Toto's face. Like, during the race, he's just like, what is going on here? Like, we just don't have the pace. Lewis is definitely not vibing with the car. George is making it work for what it is. And George is the real deal at this point, He's the guy that they need to concentrate on. Yeah,
I think it's like that Checo Perez kind of thing that we've been talking about, where the new regulations have introduced a car that wasn't necessarily built for X driver. Yeah. It's been like a clean slate, and a lot of the guys have been able to jump in there and just come to grips with it right away. Like, Bottas, he had a great weekend. Checo, P2. We're talking about Russell right now, and he came from a Williams, so like anything is probably an upgrade, as bad as that Mercedes is. But you're looking at a guy like Hamilton who's just literally struggling and he's whining now too.
He is.
So his legacy is on the line here. It looks, I hate to say it, but it looks like he's checked out.
I would say, I don't know if he's checked out. I just think maybe he's mentally struggling right now with being so high for so long, and then being a guy that's can't even get into the top 5 right now. I think there's a lot of stuff going on in the background with him that, I think if he can come to terms with this car and put a good solid couple weekends together, I think we'll see him turn back around again. He wants that 8th. there's no doubt in his mind that he wants that 8th to be the one guy to get that 8th championship. But it's not. I don't think obviously it's not going to be this year. So are you sticking around for another year?
Well, here's the thing, though. This is why I say he's checked out, because normally you wouldn't hear that kind of talk from Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It would always be optimism. It would, we're going to keep working hard. We're going to chip away at this thing. Yeah. And it's not like the car is dog. It's not competing for a win.
No.
But
Top
George
5.
Russell put it in P4.
Yeah.
And he's consistently been there.
Yeah.
5, 4, 3. And Lewis has had a third as well. But there's been 2 races where he's just been kind of like out of the mix.
Yeah.
And, the legacy is on the line, like we've been saying, right? He's chasing that 8th title. He may or may not get there, but it's recency bias. People will remember him for the car because if this season doesn't go well and that car doesn't turn around, it will always be Lewis Hamilton did it because of the car. And we've discussed it on the podcast. I mean, obviously, you have to have all components going in the right direction in order to win those kind of championships. Yeah. But not everybody looks at it that way,
exactly. When Schumacher was winning everything, people said it was the car as well, but as time went on, we realized, he is one of the best ever, and no matter how good of a car he had, he still put it in, he was still beating his teammates, he was still winning, he was still taking the championships. Yes, Michael was kind of catered to a little bit more with Ferrari, but hey, he did have a really, really, really good car for a lot of years. Yeah. So, when he didn't have the best car, he wasn't winning championships, right? He was kind of, battling like when he was when Villeneuve beat him for the championship. It was one of those
great
things.
race.
Yeah,
great race by the way.
exactly, right? So it's just one of those things. I think, yes, if he was to say retire at the end of the year and not get his 8th, people will talk about this year for a little bit, but in the grand scheme of things, I think everyone's just going to turn around and be like, but he still has won so much, and some of those wins that he's had, he shouldn't have won. He turned it around and made it win, like the drive in Interlagos last year. It was unbelievable what he did.
Yeah, that was a great drive.
Exactly.
That was a great drive.
And it's not like it's saying that the Red Bull was way off of the Mercedes last year. It was
neck and neck. It was
right?
neck and neck for
sure.
So
for him to do certain drives like that, you can't take it from him. Yes, this year he's definitely struggling. Max is on point, Leclerc is on point, but I can't say that we see the normal Lewis right now.
It's almost a shame.
Yeah.
It's almost a shame. And this, because I've thought about this so much over the off season and even in the first couple races, like as fans, we're not being provided that opportunity for that duel again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I would have loved to seen Leclerc in the mix.
Yeah.
But also see Lewis and Max go at it again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And as of right now, it just looks like we won't get that. The only way we'll get that right now is if he's got a blue flag. Like, he got lapped by Verstappen yesterday. Okay, so quick question. What's going on in Lewis's helmet as he gets lapped by Verstappen and vice versa?
I bet you Max had a big grin on his face. That's for sure. He's just like, hey, thank you very much. I'll let you go. Hey, thanks. So, yeah, I'm lapping you. At that point, I think Lewis, he's like we've said, he's so out of it that I think in the end, he's obviously got so much stuff on his mind with the team, trying to battle all the demons with the team, get this car sorted out to suit his driving style a little bit more. And when he sees something like that, it's just like, this is the icing on the cake. Like, this is it. Like, why I just got lapped by the guy that I was battling the championship for last year.
Down to the last lap last year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think in his head, he's like, look, guys, like, this is the icing on the cake for me. Like, we got to sort this out. We need to figure this out. Yeah, whatever. I don't know if they're doing stuff different or, if he caters to his setup and George is catering to a certain setup. But whatever they're doing that is making it so extremely different for Lewis and George, like if it's the same exact car and it just suits George's better, or Lewis asks for this stuff and they give it to him, and then George asks for this stuff and they give it to him, and George's setup just works better. Yeah. They need to sort out what is going on, because this is not the Mercedes team we've seen the past 7 years.
I was coming into this podcast, preparing the questions for this podcast to see where the discussion was going to go. I was thinking to myself, this might be the first podcast where we don't discuss Lewis Hamilton. And here we are. For the past 10 minutes. But that just goes to show, like, he is literally a focal point of the sport. Yeah. Right? And it might be Father Time is just undefeated and we're starting to see that demise. Like, it could be that. Yeah, it could be. Which is still respect. But when you look at the podium,
It's all young guys.
outside of Checo. I mean, the podium after qualifying, like there was an image of Leclerc, Verstappen, and Norris.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whether you like it or not, this is the future of the sport.
Yeah. You know? Put George in there, it's the future of the sport, right?
Yeah,
there.
George, 100%, right? And he's in the mix as well. Now, speaking of legacies, Seb, second weekend in the car, managed to finish the race, and Aston Martin finally gets some points on the board.
Yes.
Overall, it was a decent weekend for both him and Stroll, but I was more so impressed with Seb because he doesn't have that much time coming to grips with the car. Like, what did you make of it?
I'm very happy to see that the Aston Martin guys are turning around, both of them double points. It's huge. They were struggling so bad for so long, and the start of the season was not great for them. I think they're both just happy that they were finished where they finished. I think if they got it, like when Leclerc was coming through, Vettel's just like, go ahead, like I'm not battling you because we need these points. I'm not going to sacrifice anything, and that's the maturity of a smart driver there, where he didn't want to battle him. He just said, go ahead, like I'm not going to be able to keep you behind me anyways. So Vettel, I think for him to be able to turn around and beat his teammate after 2 races and be consistently there, it's a great show that he's still got it.
All right, we've made it to the final questions, let's say, of the show. Our trademark, our benchmark feature. Overwhelmed, underwhelmed, surprised. Lay it on me.
I'm gonna say the overwhelmed. I've got to throw Yuki in there.
Yuki,
buddy, top 6. Like,
it was a good race.
Huge.
It was a good race for him.
Started 15th or 14th.
It was a great race for him.
He drove his butt off, and he was passing people all the way up until the last couple of laps.
Come on!
Yeah. I was like, yes, Yuki, yes, I love it.
I know. I like it when Yuki gets on the radio, like when you hear, you know, the passion coming, because it's just like, he just looks so innocent and tiny.
Exactly.
But you forget that he's, they're racing drivers, and they're savages. So when he made, I can't remember who the overtake was on, but his team was on the radio and he wouldn't listen. He wouldn't have it. He was just like
I had him on my fantasy this week, and I was like just pumped.
There
and
you
I was
go.
Going for it.
There you go.
Surprised. I'm gonna go with the Aston Martins because I'm surprised they were able to bounce back that quickly and get into a double point situation. You can't take anything from them. It was a solid weekend from them. I didn't expect it, to be honest. I was bouncing back between Vettel and Yuki, and I was like, I'll take Yuki on the fantasy because I'm not too sure what's going on with Vettel, right?
Evidence suggests.
Exactly, right? So I was surprised that they were both able to do it. I was, maybe one of them might have squeaked into the top 10, but the fact that both of them jumped into the top 10, I'm happy to see them there. The underwhelm, you got to go with Lewis, man. Like, I don't understand. I just don't understand.
It's funny because I was thinking about it, and there was news this week that he was setting up to bid on the Chelsea Football Club with Serena Williams, and that. I'm like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, retirement plan.
Yeah.
Retirement plan.
He's thinking about everything that he wants to do after racing now.
Which to his credit has always been the case, but I think it was a little bit easier because he had a magnificent machine to work with. Yeah. I'm not one of those people that's going to say it's all car with Lewis Hamilton because there hasn't been one champion that has won with a terrible car. That's not how the sport goes. It's not how it works.
Yeah.
But I think it has been a little bit easier, and maybe coming into this season, he didn't realize how much of the other stuff he would have to dial back in order to compete and perform for that 8th. So, but he said it himself. He's not competing for the chip this year.
No. And I think he's got to come back. To be honest, if they sort this car out and it becomes pretty strong by the end of the season, or if they're competitive by the end of the season, he's got to come back for one more. He can't end off on this note, being so strong for so long and then ending off his career like this.
Because it's recency bias, man. It's the legacy, Anyways, we'll see what next week has to bring because the brand new circuit, Formula One, goes back to the States, the Miami Grand Prix, the inaugural Grand Prix. Nobody knows anything. Never been on the circuit, but it does look like a vibe.
It's going to be, It's actually, the tickets were more expensive than the Monaco Grand Prix.
Wow.
And I have a client that races with us, and he bought tickets a year ago when they first put them on sale. And the organizers, there's a 350,000 person wait list to get tickets for this thing. And you can sell your tickets for 4 times what it is at this point because everyone wants to go.
This is the thing, man. F1 has been looking to break into that North American market for a long time. We've said it before, we'll say it again. I think the Netflix series had a lot to do with some of the aspirations and Dominicali kind of trying to finesse something. We always had, Texas They have Vegas now for next year. They have Miami now. Like, we have Canada, but, you know, I would love a Toronto Grand Prix.
Yeah, I would.
Future, we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, that North American market is like, it's just calling F1. And when the numbers go crazy like that, and the 350,000 waiting list, you know there's going to be more to come.
Exactly.
So for us in Canada, in North America, it's a good thing because we'd actually be able to travel maybe and look at some Grand Prix live in the flesh. But when it comes to this brand new circuit, like, what do we predict? Red Bull looks super strong.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty fast track, so I think it might cater to the Red Bulls a little bit more. But you know, we've seen fast tracks in the first couple races, and then the Ferraris have been quick. As long as the Red Bulls can keep the reliability, you know, with a place like Imola, it's not very high speed, wringing the neck of the engine out a little bit more. So it's kind of catered to Red Bull's reliability issues. But if you have a fast track like Miami might be, you know, that it might put some more strain on those engines, and we might see some more reliability issues coming from the Red Bulls.
Well, we look forward to seeing it. An F1 weekend is a great weekend indeed. For Daryl Timmers. Oh, yeah. Shout that out.
So, Marley, Subi, thank you very much for the purchase, for the products. They're a great family that races out of the Mika Championship with us at Mosport, and he handed over a hat to me, and I had to represent it while we were on the podcast. So, shout out to Marley and Subi. What's up, boys?
There it is, yeah. And speaking of the Mika Championships, well underway now. We're waiting for the weather to kind of come around, but the first race weekend was decent. So we'll see what the future holds on that. But, DT, thanks so much, man. Yep. We'll be back at it for another episode of another race weekend after the Miami Grand Prix. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, do all that stuff, and take us on the go as well. We are a podcast version. If you look down in the comments below, I post all the links there. So no matter where you get your podcast, you'll be able to stream another race weekend.